welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be telling you how to get a grade 9 in English language and English literature. So for context, I got a 9 in English language and I got an 8 in English literature, but I was consistently at 8s and 9s throughout year 11, and I was at lower grades in year 10, but some of these tips helped me improve to those higher grades. So I'll be telling you guys some secrets that you might not even think of to help you guys improve. Tip number 1 is to save time when reading up resources, and one way you can do this is by using Briefy, which is an online AI knowledge assistant and such a handy tool for subjects like English language and literature, where there's so much reading up on context of books or their analysis. Firstly, you can summarize text with up to 2 million words or even YouTube videos. You can manage what you've summarized in your knowledge base on your account, and also their search feature is excellent because you can directly search up on Briefy the answers that you need for any questions that you have. I love that you can access this on all your devices, which is so convenient. I think one of the most unique features that Briefy has is the fact that it automatically makes a mind map of the summary of the website that you're on, which is so helpful for visual learners like me. And I genuinely wish I had this when I was doing my GCSEs, because I remember spending ages and ages reading up on so much material when I could have just used Briefy. But now I'm at medical school and there's still so much reading to do. I still save so much time while studying. It's also trusted by so many businesses like Google, Stanford University, Disney, and so many more. If you use a link in my description, you can get a back to school discount as well. Anyways, back to the video. Also, if you're a regular viewer of mine, you might have noticed that the background is very different, and that is because I am currently filming in my university accommodation. So do get used to this background that I have behind me, because this is my room, and I will be doing a lot more university content which will be coming up soon, so stay tuned for that as well. Tip number 2 is what to do when there's nothing to analyze. I feel like this is a very big problem that a lot of people run into with English language and English literature, and I run into this problem before as well when I was doing my GCSEs. And it's not a great problem to be in, because with English language and English literature, they're seeing how much you can analyze, what the text is suggesting. They want to see what you are able to see, and if there's nothing that you can see and nothing you can analyze, then you won't be able to get a lot of marks, and therefore you won't be able to reach the higher grades. So when you are in this problem, there's a couple of things you can do. Firstly, I would say analyzing sentence lengths is a very good tactic to do if you genuinely have nothing to analyze. So obviously, if there's an extract, there would be sentences, and if there's sentences, they would have a length to those sentences. So you can definitely analyze this no matter what, although for some extracts it might not be best to analyze this, but something is better than nothing, right? So when I say sentence lengths, what I mean by this is if there's a lot of short sentences all in one go, it would mean that there is a very quick pace of reading. Obviously, short sentences are quicker to read, so the reader would read them very quickly. And therefore, if they're reading it very quickly, it kind of builds suspense because you're anticipating something waiting to happen. And if they are longer, they are just providing more explanation, adding more detail, setting the scene for the reader. So sentence lengths is definitely one way to go if you genuinely have no other way out and there's nothing to analyze. You can do sentence lengths. Also, if you genuinely think that there's nothing in the extract, look for even the smallest of adjectives and verbs and try and analyze this into what the mood of the text is, or what it is doing to the audience or the reader, depending on whether it's like a book or a play. It's okay to be far-fetched sometimes. I feel like even English teachers sometimes tend to analyze things which seem so far-fetched. So it's better to be far-fetched than to not have anything written down. So if the extract says the adjective nice, you can even analyze that. You can say the adjective nice suggests that the character is nice, or the character has a good personality, or the character is likable, and it sets a positive mood for the reader. Something as simple as that can help you gain some marks. Tip number 3 is to always use a pen or a highlighter. I use this so much in year 11. I didn't in year 10, and year 10 is where I thought this was so difficult, like extracts and English was just not my subject. But in year 11 I started doing this, and I definitely did see my grades improve. So always use a pen to underline or just a highlighter when you're reading the extract, and as you go through and read the extract, definitely highlight or underline anything that's useful, anything that's a metaphor, anything that provides context, anything that just jumps out at you. Also read the question first so that you know what you're looking for, especially in English literature. So if the question is like, okay, explain how this shows Macbeth's violent character or something, now you know you're looking for things that show his violent character. You're looking for adjectives, you're looking for metaphors, you're looking for short sentence lengths perhaps, which shows suspense and therefore shows that he has a violent character because it builds up suspense for something horror related to be happening. So read the question first in English literature and even in English language, and then highlight anything that jumps out at you and anything that will be perfect for the question. Tip number 4 is use your teacher thoroughly. And I stand by this tip so much, especially for English language and English literature, because the amount of essays or written pieces of work that my English teacher had to read and give me feedback for is crazy. Just in the off chance my English teacher is watching this video, shout out to you, Miss McDonald. Thank you so much for saving my life in English language and literature and marking everything I gave you. So yeah, thank you. It helped me so much, because with subjects like English literature and English language, it's so subjective. One teacher could give a written piece of work a grade 5, whereas another could give it a grade 9. It genuinely could be that big of a gap. So it's so important to ask a teacher for help, because the only way you can improve is through feedback and through what your English teacher thought was missing or what you could add for next time. With subjects like maths and science, there's a set mark scheme, there's a set correct answer. With English, it's not like that, and you genuinely have to be confident, show your English teacher your work, remember that they're there for you, and they genuinely can't really get annoyed at you because they are your teacher. And if they do start getting annoyed, go to other English teachers in your department. Get a variety of opinions. And that's also great because, as I said, one teacher could give something a grade 9, whereas another could give it a grade 5. So if you get a variety of opinions, it tells you what you can improve for a wide range of views. So definitely use your teacher and make sure to hand in written piece of work, or like whenever you do a past paper, show them and ask how you can improve. Tip number 5 is to use the examiner's report, and this is crucial for English literature and language. Again, at the end of the day, who will be marking your paper? Examiners. So if there's the examiner's reports online already available for you to see, you can see what they are looking for and what will get you high marks. So if you don't already know, an examiner's report is basically, for each past paper, examiners have analysed really good exemplar pieces of work, and also pieces of work that are grade 7, grade 8, grade 9. There's different pieces of work for each question, and it gives the examiners feedback for that written piece of work as well, and it shows you what they're looking for. It shows you like a defined way to see what is really good in the examiner's eyes and what's not good in the examiner's eyes. So reading this is so crucial, because examiners have a set way of working. If they see that you've analysed a metaphor, that's great. If they see that you've used words that aren't perhaps high vocabulary, then it won't really get you as high of a grade as someone that has used that. So examiners' reports are crucial. Okay, so far I've given tips that work both for English language and English literature. So now I'm going to give some specific tips for English literature and specific tips for English language to help you guys succeed. So English literature, tip number 1 is start building a flashcard quote bank from day 1. So you would start reading the text from day 1. You will start analysing, you will start highlighting and annotating on your book, or however your school does it, you will start reading it and thinking about the quotes that you could use for your final exams from day one. So have a quote flashcard bank, whether that be digital or physical cards. I personally made physical cards because that helped me for GCSE, although for A-levels I use digital flashcards for my subjects, so it genuinely depends on what you prefer. But start building a quote bank from day one. So what I would do is, on one side of the flashcard I would write, you know, any quotes related to Macbeth's violence, for example, and then on the other side I would start writing quotes. Obviously you would start doing themes and stuff like that once you've finished, but you could even just write significant quotes from Act 1, for example for Macbeth or a Shakespeare play, and then on the other side write, you know, the first few that you've started learning, and you can keep on building that as you go along. So start making it from day one. Just to quickly clarify, I know I keep on saying day one in this video, but I also mean if you've already started your GCSEs and if you've already started learning, I would say start now. So it's never too late until the actual exam. So if you haven't started already, start now, even if, you know, you're halfway through the course or wherever you are in your GCSE progress, start now. Tip number 2 is mind mapping, and I think this is a revolutionary thing in English literature because there's so many quotes and so many themes and so many characters. Sometimes it gets so jumbled up, but with a mind map you can put all of that onto one piece of paper for a certain theme or a certain character and genuinely link all the context or all the quotes and everything together onto one page. So let me show you what I mean. So this is what I would do. I would get a notebook, and in the middle I would make a bubble which says the theme or the character. So for example, if you have done Macbeth, there's the character of the witches. So I'll do an example for that. So as you can see, I've made a little bubble that says the witches, and I would do this for characters or themes, and that's the bubble. So what I would do next is I would get any quotes and have arrows leading out from the bubble to the quotes. So let me show you what I mean. So I've got a classic up, and that just says fair is foul and foul is fair, which is one of the quotes that the witches say right at the beginning, I'm pretty sure. So what I would do next is from here I would have arrows leading out to any details that is in that specific quote. Basically rinse out anything that you can spot. So what I mean by this is you can do the rhyming of it, you can do if there's alliteration. So this would count as alliteration because there's F sounds 4 times, so that would be fricative alliteration. And definitely, if you don't know what to analyze, go over different sentence structures, different sentence moods, different forms, different language techniques. So go over that to help you analyze anything. So for this one, for example, I would have an arrow leading out. So here I have written fricative alliteration and trochaic tetrameter, which are 2 techniques used in this quote. And then I would have arrows leading out from that to show what the effect of that is. So for example, for trochaic tetrameter, the effect of that is in Macbeth, all the higher ranked people or the people that have superiority use iambic pentameter, which is a type of rhyming meter. But the witches don't use that. They use a very weird one, which is trochaic tetrameter. And because this is weird, the audience would say, you know, this is very weird, so they are weird characters. And that's a very simplified version of it. Obviously, you can analyze way more. And as for the fricative alliteration, if you say F sounds really quickly and they're all the same sounds, fair is foul and foul is fair, it's very sharp. And it's very sharp and piercing, and it's very repetitive as well. So because it's very sharp and aggressive, it kind of shows mystery and mysteriousness about these characters, which is exactly what Shakespeare intends to show, because the witches were meant to be mysterious and the audience would say that this is mystery and weird, and this is against their religion as well at the time of this play. So then you can also bring in context, and I would have different colors. Right now I'm just using a black pen, but I would have different colors for the quotes, different colors for the effect, different colors for the techniques. And then once you're done, it will look so nice. So okay, for example, I would write the effect of it, and then I would write any context related to that, like that. So once you're done, you would have like a big page, and it would look really nice, and it would also be very, very informative. And this is what I would take and what I would look at before the exam, or also the morning of the exam. And it would be so helpful in my opinion, and I really recommend, because it links everything together. Also, just a bonus tip, if you don't know what a certain technique, what the effect of that is, just search it up and it will come up with the effect of that on the reader or the audience. So for example, I searched up effect of fricative alliteration, and it came up with the fact that Shakespeare used it for mystery purposes and to set a mysterious atmosphere. And that's perfect, and then you can write that down in your mind map and remember it for your exams. Tip number 3 is how to actually memorize this mind map. So once you've made the mind map, obviously you've got it all down and it's perfect, but it most likely will not all be in your brain. And the way to remember this is, what you would do is you would get your mind map and you won't look at it. Then you get a piece of paper and you blurt it all out. If you don't already know what blurting is, it's basically just getting a piece of paper and anything that you can remember, absolutely anything, even the smallest of details that you can remember from that page, you would write it down. You know, it doesn't even have to be neat, it can be really messy. It's just to show what you have in your brain. And you can even, instead of metaphor, you can just write M, because blurting will take forever if you write down every single word. So you can summarize and just write down everything that you know from that page. And anything that was missing, so once you're done, you'd go back and see your mind map, and anything that was missing, you'd write down in a different color and try and memorize for next time. Then you'd keep repeating until there's nothing that was missing. And this is such a good way to just get all that information in your brain and make sure that whole mind map and all the quotes and all the context links is in your mind. Tip number 5 kind of goes for English language as well, but I use this so much for English literature, and that is to use good verbs when you're actually writing down your analysis. So what I mean by this is, a lot of people would just write, okay, this suggests, and this suggests, and this means, and this suggests. I think suggests is used so much that examiners might get bored of it. So if they see a student that's used something that's not suggests, they might think of giving them one of those higher grades. So what I mean by this is, use synonyms of suggests, like encapsulates, examines, amplifies. Use those verbs that still mean suggests, but they are just more of a higher level vocabulary, and therefore can get you those higher marks. Also have a sentence structure. So instead of just writing the adjective suggests, you can write the adjective powerfully encapsulates. So have something else instead of suggests, and also have an adverb like powerfully, successfully, vividly. Think of any synonyms of those and have that down as like a vocab bank for yourself, so that you can remember that for your exams and use those high level vocabulary. Tip number 6 is to research context thoroughly, because the amount of marks that context could get you is definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked. So definitely research context thoroughly, and I would do this by asking your teacher, for example, what that audience would be thinking of, researching online. There's so many good YouTube videos, and there's also loads of websites like SparkNotes is great. And I would definitely look at different articles. So for example, using Macbeth again, the character of the witches would be perceived by the audience as someone that is the work of the devil, because the audience was very religious at the time, and they would think that the witches are evil because they are servants of the devil, for example, or they're not religious. So anything like that, research context and embed this whenever you analyze for certain questions. I know that for some English literature questions, you don't have to put context. At least in my exam board, which was edXL, there were some questions, but definitely check with your exam board, see what questions get you marks for context, and for those questions, research it thoroughly. For tip number 7, I'm just going to recommend all the good YouTube channels that I saw for English literature, which I thought were so good. So first up, Mr. Bruff. He's a classic, and I loved his analysis videos, and also the quotation song was very helpful. I think it just was stuck in my head and it helped me remember some of the quotes. Also, Mr. Sal's is a really good YouTube channel to watch for English literature and English language. Also, a hidden gem in my opinion is Mark Birch. His videos, genuinely I owe my English literature grade to him because his analysis was so good, and I just love it when YouTube channels analyze like line by line, sentence by sentence, rather than just, you know, a general view, because I can actually see where the analysis is coming from. And his analysis was very high level. It used high level vocabulary that if you use in your actual exam, it will definitely unlock those high grades for you as well. So definitely check those channels out, and those were the channels that I used for my English GCSE. Now, some tips for English language. Tip number 1 is actually see what the question is asking you for. Now, what I mean by this is some English language questions might be asking you to evaluate, some might be asking you to analyze. There is a difference, and they want to see that you know the difference between evaluate and analyze. Analyze just means to see what there is in the text and analyze it, essentially. See what effect that is adding onto the text and how it contributes to the overall atmosphere or the characters or whatever it is that the question is asking you for. Evaluate doesn't necessarily mean that, but it is very similar, so don't get confused. So evaluate, for example, would mean the same as analyze. You'd still have to analyze everything, but they are looking for your judgment. They are looking for your opinion because you are evaluating. You are the judge, and they want to see what you think about it. And for evaluate questions, I would add a mini conclusion after each paragraph, and I would say, in my personal opinion, or I believe that this adds great whatever to the text, and then have a conclusion at the end as well, because evaluate, you have to evaluate at the end as well. So there is a difference, and see on the exam board's website what they mean by the question types, and it is crucial that you know this, because if you don't add a conclusion for evaluate, you will not be able to get those higher marks. Tip number 2 for English language, and this is for the writing task that I had to do for Edexcel, and some other exam boards I believe have that as well, and that is to see what the structure of a letter or a speech or a newspaper article actually is. So for example, for a letter, you might have to add the addresses at the start, and you might have to say, I'm writing to inform you, etc. A speech, for example, might be very similar to an article, but you might also have to add in some speech related sentences. So for example, as if you are pointing at someone in the audience, you would add that into a speech, compared to an article which wouldn't have that, but it might have like subheadings, it might have the newspaper's name at the start or something like that. So definitely see what actually goes in the articles or speech or letter or leaflets I've seen as well. So see what the structure of that is, so that you are not surprised when the time actually comes for you to write one of those. Tip number 3 for English language, which I think I've kind of mentioned already, but that is to make sure that you are planning your time for English language, because it's so pressured, and before you know it, the time will be up and you haven't started one of the questions. So have some time for all the questions. Make sure that you plan out beforehand, okay, I will spend 40 minutes on this, and then I'll spend 15 minutes on this, and then I'll spend this much time on this question. Have that all planned out before you go in the exam, so that you're more prepared for when you're actually sitting the exam. Also, aim to have at least 5 minutes to check and make sure everything's okay. 5 minutes checking might just mean you're flipping through and seeing if you've actually answered everything, but the 5 minutes, if you have more time, you could start reading what you've written and seeing if it all adds up and it all makes sense and you haven't missed out any words or you haven't misspelled anything. So have that time to check as well. Okay, so that is all for today. I hope you guys found the tips helpful and I will see you guys later. Bye!